Hello people, let us look at pseudophakia history taking. So basically, what is pseudophakia, guys? It is nothing but false lens. So you have removed the natural lens, right? And you have replaced it with an artificial lens. So you can either have a artificial lens can be in the posterior chamber or in the anterior chamber, or it can be iris fixated, right? So there can be so many types of pseudophakia. So here there is posterior chamber intraocular lens. You will see jet black pupil with shining reflex. So only jet black pupil means what? Aphakia. If the shining reflex, that means there is pseudophakia, artificial lens. So basically, first you will take the data of the information, the age, the name, the sex, the occupation, education, address, phone number, anything that you need, religion, etc. So then when you're presenting, you will say it as, here's a male patient, or female patient, aged about so and so. This one by occupation, hailing from which place, okay? So what are the presenting complaints in this? Will they have any complaint? Usually they will not come for any complaint, but they would have come for a follow-up or something, right? Or it can happen that the other eye has the issue and they have come, right? These people, for near vision, they could be using spectacles. Now let us say they still have problem even with pseudophakia. Okay, what could their complaints be? So I'm sure you can think about the complaints. They could have some astigmatism after the surgery. They could have some wrong IOL implanted, right? So they could have consecutive myopia or hypermetropia after cataract. That is, guys, after this cataract surgery, the posterior capsule has undergone opacity, right? So posterior capsule could have got affected after this cataract surgery, right? Guys, basically a pseudophakia guy can come with any complication of the cataract surgery, right? After the cataract surgery, there are some early post-operative complications like hyphema, iris prolapse, or striate keratopathy, anterior uveitis, endophthalmitis. They could have come for these, or they could have come for the delayed complaints like cystoid macular edema, delayed endophthalmitis, bullous keratopathy, retinal detachment, or after cataract, right? That's what we told you just now, right? Then it could be an IOL related complication like a cystoid macular edema again, or the IOL is sitting in the wrong place like the sunset or the sunrise or the lost lens, right? Where it is it is dislocated into the vitreous cavity, or there could be a windshield wiper syndrome. There could be a pupillary capture of the IOL. There could be anterior toxic segment syndrome. So many things. I'm sure these people would have come for all that, right? Cystoid macular edema, retinal detachment. They could have come for glaucoma. Pseudophakic glaucoma is there because of the artificial lens. They are having glaucoma because of that. Okay, then IOL related complications we told you. So these could be the presenting complaints. Now what should we move on to? History of presenting illness. Okay, history of presenting illness, guys. Let's move on. So the patient was apparently normal this many years back. He noticed diminution of vision, right? Or whatever it is, you'll have to write here. So he's giving you history of surgery so many months or years back. Before this surgery, he was able to see how much. After the surgery, how much he was able to see. And now how much he's seeing, okay? Whether he is using spectacles or not currently. Then, history of presenting illness is very similar to everything what we have seen so far in the pro forma video, isn't it? So you have to evaluate the duration, the onset duration associated with what pain, etc. So what and all will you ask, guys? Whether they have glare or pain or redness, watering, discharge from the eye. Is there any pain, eyebrow pain, headache? All this you will ask. Okay, associated with what and all you will ask. Now let's move on, guys. Ocular history. Let us look at ocular history. So basically they are they wearing specs, near vision or distant vision, from when, and then which eye. Standard in ocular history, guys, you can ask the history of surgery, trauma, eye drops if they are using, the duration of eye drops, etc. Guys, as this is pseudophakia and if it is a complication of cataract surgery, they can have any symptom, isn't it? And then you will have to ask all these things. You can't leave out anything, is it? So all this surgery, trauma, everything you'll have to ask. Then we'll go to past history, guys. Past history you have already seen in pro forma. You'll ask about diabetes, hypertension, COPD, asthma, ischemic heart disease, and tuberculosis. Because if they are going to cough, then they can have an iris prolapse. Timolol is contraindicated in asthma. You have to give vitoxolol. If they have ischemic heart disease, then you'll have to stop aspirin before any further surgery. And tuberculosis can have a lot of other complications. Example, dacryocystitis, right? So all this you can ask. Standard past history in ophthalmology. Then coming to personal history, you will ask, in personal history, guys, diet, appetite, habits. Then family history, we are putting the family last. Basically, you'd have to ask if their parents have had cataract surgery, etc. This is more about just generally you can ask if there's any significant history to know how soon his cataract matures, etc. In this case, it's already treated though. So what next, guys? After history taking, family history over. So now let us move to general physical examination, then ocular examination. This is what we have to do, right? General physical examination, you will say whether the person is well-nourished, well-oriented, time, place person. Now, what's the temperature, pulse, respiratory rate, blood pressure, pallor, icterus, cyanosis, clubbing, lymphadenopathy, edema, all that. Then ocular examination, head posture. Facial symmetry is the face symmetric on right and left side. Ocular posture, visual axis, if it is parallel or not, right? Then coming to specific right, left, you will check visual acuity, right? You will check distant vision, near vision, color vision if possible, and visual field, okay? Visual field, F-I-E-L-D, yeah? Then you will check the eyebrows, position, everything. Eyelids, what and all you will check. Eyelids, you will check the position, margin, movement, palpebral aperture, width, the width of the palpebral aperture, skin over the eyelid, you will check the eyelashes also. Then lacrimal apparatus, what will you check? You'll check the puncta. For the upper puncta, you may have to avert. Then skin over lacrimal sac area, you will check regurgitation test, Roplas. Eyeball, you will check the size. You'll check the size of the eyeball, position of the eyeball, whether there's proptosis or not. Guys, focus. What are we looking at? Pseudophakia case, right? So here, then you'll check the movements of the eyeball, uniocular, binocular, and palpebral conjunctiva. I think if this patient is recently operated on, you're not supposed to probably touch, right? So just pay attention to that. Then check all this, whatever is possible. Then cornea, you will check the shape, size, surface, sheen, sensation, transparency, sensation and all only if you're allowed to, right? Otherwise you should not. Then sclera, again you'll check the color, right? And if there's any staphyloma, right? All this you will check. Then anterior chamber, check the depth, the contents. How will you check the depth? From the side you will put from the temporal side you will put the torchlight and check the illumination of the iris, right, on the nasal side. Contents you will check if possible. That I think you will need slit lamp examination, but otherwise if you are able to see something. Iris, you will check the color, the pattern, pupil, the number of pupils, sight of the pupil, size of the pupil, shape, color, pupillary reactions, the direct light reflex, indirect light reflex, near reflex. As it's a case of pseudophakia, your main giveaway here is the pupil. Pupil color will be jet black with shining reflex because of pseudophakia, right? Then Purkinje images you can check. Lens, basically there is no natural lens here, so you can probably see if it is posterior IOL you may not see, but if it's anterior IOL you will be able to see, right? All the haptics and all that. If it is dislocated posterior you may be able to see also. If the dilated pupil is there, then probably you can see the lens, right? It will be a pseudophakia, you can mention all that. Then fundus examination, if you are allowed to, intraocular pressure, okay? Guys, so after this, what will you do? You will give the summary. Patient so-and-so, age so-and-so, has come in with chief complaint of so-and-so, history of so-and-so, all that you will give. Then a differential diagnosis you will give, and then provisional diagnosis. Most probably it is this. You will need further investigations, which you will mention here, then treatment, okay? What will you need for pseudophakia? Based on the complaint only we can decide, right? See, pseudophakia, this is posterior IOL, okay? Posterior chamber IOL. After dilation of pupil, they have dilated the pupil. Note, presence of fourth Purkinje image. Fourth Purkinje image is present, they are saying. In aphakia, it will be absent, right? Aphakia will have only two Purkinje images. Here you should see the fourth Purkinje image. Are you able to see, guys? Fourth seems to be inverted. You can see here. This is the fourth. It is inverted, right? Here they have shown fourth. So from two images will come from the cornea. See, P1, P2 actually come from cornea, right? And P3, P4 come from the crystalline lens. 4 is inverted and it seems to be on the nasal side. Let's check this. Are you able to see? On the nasal side, you should be able to see it. Pseudophakia can also mean anterior chamber lens, guys. So look at this. This is anterior chamber lens. Very clearly, you can see that haptic here. Can you see that? So you can clearly make out the margins of the optic. So you can clearly say it's an anterior chamber intraocular lens, isn't it? Jet black pupil is also there. Now let us look at case discussion with pseudophakia. What and all they can ask you, how pseudophakia is diagnosed. How do you know it's a pseudophakia in this eye, right? So what do you see here? You can see a limbal scar possibly, right? There could be a limbal scar here telling you that there is a cataract surgery, right? Then the person itself can give you a history of cataract surgery. You can see a jet black pupil with shining reflex. You can see a posterior chamber IOL, which will be behind the iris, right? You can see an anterior chamber IOL. Then, coming to the next question, what is the refractive status in a pseudophakic eye? So these people can have perfect vision, emmetropia, they can have perfect, they can have consecutive myopia. The power of IOL is like not matching. So they can have consecutive myopia or consecutive hypermetropia. Then, so this is the refractive status of this people. Next question about the near vision. What is the status of the near vision of the pseudophakic eye? So basically these people can, usually they'll have a unifocal lens, so IOL only. So they will need extra for near vision. They will have to wear spectacles or some correction they will need for near vision. Okay. Then various generations of IOL. You have 6 generations, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 generations of IOLs, the textbook says. So initially you had posterior, then anterior chamber, then iris, then you have modified anterior, then modified posterior, then 6th generation they are saying modern capsular posterior chamber IOL. And I think this is what they do, right? MC. I think this is what they do. What do you say? Okay. So 6 generations are there. You have understood. Then let's move on to the next question. What are the materials which IOL is made up of? Or wait, what is the recent advance of IOL? So you have multifocal IOLs, foldable IOLs, rollable, and all that has come, right? Foldable, at least you can remember. That is what they use, isn't it? Multifocal is very difficult to handle. Multifocal spectacles itself people can't handle. What they will handle IOL, I don't know. Okay, what are the materials of with which IOL is made of? You have seen all this in our IOL video, isn't it? I think if you just look at our IOL video, you'll be able to answer all the questions, right? So based on the material, you have rigid IOL, foldable and rollable. So rigid IOL, remember PMMA, that is polymethyl methacrylate, right? What is this PMMA? Then foldable, you have silicone and acrylic. This is what is very important. You should know this. Foldable is silicone, acrylic. Rollable has hydrogel, okay? So there are a lot of classifications. If you want, you can know all this. So you have unifocal, multifocal, accommodative. Remember, unifocal only is more important. Foldable, unifocal, all these are important. Posterior chamber lens important, okay? Special function IOLs, you have the toric one for astigmatism, right? Then you have the aspheric IOL, then aniridia IOL. That is for people who don't have an iris, right? This is the toric and this is the aniridia IOL, okay? Parts of IOL, you can just say optic and haptic. Optic, haptic, over. Then types of IOL, we just now told you, isn't it? Anterior, posterior, iris fixated, rigid, foldable. You have a toric, aniridia, etc. How IOLs are sterilized? This is important because this can cause complications in your cataract surgery, isn't it? IOLs are sterilized with what? You can have chemical sterilization by soaking it in sodium hydroxide, or you can have gas sterilization where you would sterilize it with ethylene oxide. Guys, focus here. And then you can sterilize it with radiation also. This ethylene oxide itself is causing problem. Wait. You remember this toxic anterior segment syndrome is because of your IOL complication. It is happening because they are using ethylene gas for sterilizing IOLs, okay? Usually early cases it is because of this ethylene oxide, but late cases because of the lens material itself, these people can have toxic anterior segment syndrome. Guys, next question they have asked is what are the IOL related complications? Let us look at that. Cystoid macular edema, malpositions of IOL, you can see here, this one, the sunset syndrome, the IOL is inferior subluxation, sunset syndrome, sunrise syndrome, there's superior subluxation of IOL. Then here you have the lost lens syndrome, it is dislocated into the vitreous cavity, right? Then you have the windshield wiper syndrome, where the movement of the IOL, it moves with the movement of the eye, right? It as a result of small IOL, they've placed a small IOL, so it moves with movement of eye, like a windshield wiper. Okay. Then you have pupillary capture of the IOL. The pupil neatly catches this IOL like this. See? Cute, right? Yeah, but that's a complication. Then you have this toxic anterior segment syndrome, which we already told you is because of that ethylene, what is it? Ethylene oxide in early stages. Late stages is because of IOL material itself. Okay. This and all you have already seen. Few other complications they are telling here. UGH syndrome, then corneal retinal inflammation, corneal edema, corneal decompensation. Lot of things they are saying. Posterior capsule will opacify. That will become after cataract, right? Look at one last question about IOL. Then we will take other questions. Still questions are there, but look at this question now. What are the causes of diminution of vision in a pseudophakic eye? Diminution of vision in a pseudophakic eye. Why? Why can a person with pseudophakia come with diminution of vision? This is important. Pay attention. This person went into after cataract, or he got cystoid macular edema, or he has a retinal detachment. Now, all these are new. But previously itself, maybe he had glaucoma, retinal detachment, age-related macular degeneration, or he had diabetic maculopathy, or he had amblyopia, guys, or he had post-operative some complication. Okay, then we'll see that corneal edema was there. Some cornea itself was not clear, looks like. And then what else? Pre-existing conditions like endophthalmitis, they're saying. Then why did they do the surgery? So basically, what else will you see now? Now let us look at some other questions here. Here, based on after cataract, there are some questions. There, based on cystoid macular edema, there are some questions. So look at this. What is after cataract? Means basically there is cataract after you've done cataract surgery. So basically the posterior capsule will opacify, PCO they are saying, and that person will land up in after cataract. Where is posterior capsule? Here, right? So basically it's opacification of posterior capsule of lens, and the incidence is 10 to 50% it seems after ECCE. So there are different types of after cataract which you have seen in after cataract video, right? So you have that Elschnig pearls. Remember this? So here you have the dense membranous, Sommer ring and Elschnig pearls. Remember? So these are the types of after cataract. So before dense membranous, you should mention thin membranous. So there's thin membranous, dense membranous, Sommer ring and Elschnig pearls. Okay. Then definitely they will ask you, how do you treat this after cataract, right? Remember, you can use laser, you can use YAG laser capsulotomy, or you can do decision with the cystitome or Ziegler's knife. So either you can use laser or you can use this knife, looks like. If it is Sommer ring, no need to do anything if the central part is clear, isn't it? That's it. And for this membrane thing, you have to do membranectomy. They'll ask you questions like, why does this after cataract happen? Right? What's the mechanism of after cataract? Can you prevent after cataract? So pay attention. So basically here the mechanism of after cataract, guys, the equatorial epithelium which remains active throughout the life. Where is that equatorial epithelium? So the equatorial epithelium, which is the equator here. So the equatorial epithelium which remains active throughout its life is the primary source of after cataract, okay? Especially the Elschnig pearls one. So this happens because of these epithelium which is there in the equator. Can you say Elschnig pearl?
Elschnig pearl.
Yeah, pearl. And the Sommer ring type because of this, okay? But the membranous one happens because of the posterior proliferation of the anterior epithelial cells. So why does the membranous one happen? The membranous one happens because of the proliferation, the posterior proliferation of the anterior epithelial cells, okay? So the equatorial epithelial cells, because of that, what will happen? The Elschnig pearls and the Sommer ring ring. But the membranous one is because of the posterior proliferation of the anterior epithelial cells. Did you understand the mechanism? We are talking about the mechanism of what? After cataract.
After cataract.
After cataract.
After cataract.
Cataract, okay. Okay, so can we prevent this? Can we prevent this after cataract? Let's see.
Cat means cat, rat means rat.
Okay, that's not the way to prevent. Let's see. So basically, you have to reduce the source of the after cataract. So you have to completely remove the cortical matter. Guys, focus here, guys. We are looking at how to prevent after cataract. You will completely remove the cortical matter. You should not leave anything behind. You have to polish the posterior capsule. You're saying you polish the posterior capsule. You polish the undersurface of the remaining anterior capsule. Whatever anterior capsule you have left remaining, that also you should polish the undersurface, right? To remove any epithelial cells which are there where in the anterior or in the equatorial, any epithelial cells you should remove. That's what they're saying, right? Reduce the stimulus for after cataract by using biocompatible IOL. So use biocompatible IOLs. Don't use something else, right? Use biocompatible IOLs. So there will be no stimulus. So this biocompatible IOL will reduce the stimulation of cellular proliferation. Biocompatible. Can you say this word? Biocompatible
Compatible.
IOL.
IOL.
Okay, then let us look at the other heading they have given here, guys. How to prevent after cataract. One more heading is there here. Use the IOL with square truncated edges, which will prevent its migration. Okay, it will prevent the migration of these anterior epithelial cells posteriorly. So you use some square truncated edges. What do you think is square truncated edges? Is the truncation here? That's what it looks like, guys. Square edge. They're saying this is square edge. Can you see? See, square truncated, sharp edge IOL designs, IOLs with round anterior and sharp posterior edge, etc. Things are getting so complicated, isn't it? So using biconvex IOL, plano-convex IOL, okay, some things are there here, guys. You can read all this from the textbook. There's a lot of information, isn't it? Okay, so then we'll move to CME, guys. What is CME? Cystoid macular edema. These are the last 3 questions. Don't worry, guys. We are done with pseudophakia case discussion. So, yes, this is the last 3 questions. Cystoid macular edema, basically accumulation of fluid in the outer plexiform layer and inner nuclear layer of the retina in macula. So, where is the problem? It is in the macular area, right? That much you understood, yes. But where is the fluid accumulation? In the retinal layers, which part? It is accumulation of fluid in the outer plexiform layer and the inner nuclear layer. So between these two, right, especially in the macular area, not the entire retina. Here in the macular, where is the macula? Macular area here. So here, this part of the retina, here between the 2 layers, that is the outer plexiform layer and the inner nuclear layer of retina, here you will have fluid accumulation. This is cystoid macular edema, right? So this will form cystic spaces in the macula. This is called as cystoid macular edema. In funduscopy, it gives typical honeycomb appearance. Let's see this. So in macula, they have just drawn a honeycomb structure and they're saying this is the honeycomb of CME. Okay. Anyways, at least some clarity we are getting. Then what else you should know here? In fundus fluorescein angiography, you will have flower petal appearance. I think we have seen this, right? Look at this image, guys. Fundus fluorescein angiography, it's showing you flower petal appearance, right? Can you see the flower petal appearance, guys? And then look here down. Here you have the OCT picture showing cystoid spaces. Okay, what is OCT? Optical coherence tomography. Very good. So now let us see what else you want to know here. We are still in this question, is it? So I think we are done with this, right? Now let us go to the next question. What is the mechanism of CME? So basically, why does this happen? They are saying that the thinness of this fovea centralis, and the thickness of the Henle's layer, these are responsible for the accumulation of inflammatory exudates at the macular region. So why it happens, you should know, right? So why is always for anything cataract surgery complication, cystoid macular edema? Why for everything on earth they are saying this, right? So why is it so common, right? You should know that. Then, what is the mechanism? So there is release of the inflammatory mediators, right? The prostaglandins, they result in edema at the macula. Why are these inflammatory mediators released? That is because of post-operative inflammation, because of iridocyclitis. Guys, focus. Then it can happen because of uncontrolled diabetes, hypertension, vitreous disturbances like vitreous loss, vitreous incarceration in the wound, right? So all this can cause cystoid macular edema. So they blame diabetes, hypertension, everything, blame some iridocyclitis. With all these inflammatory material, they'll go and accumulate this. There's a thin fovea centralis area. There's a thick Henle's loops, Henle's layer. Henle's layer, sorry guys, Henle's layer. The thin fovea centralis, the thick Henle's layer. Between this, they can absorb large quantities of fluid and they will become cystoid macular edema. How will you treat cystoid macular edema? You will give antiprostaglandin, because just now in the mechanism they told you it's prostaglandin. Now in the how will you treat it? You give antiprostaglandin. So easy. Just give ketorolac, indomethacin, and you're done. When you should give this? Yes, as an initial treatment or a prophylactic treatment before cataract surgery itself, you can give to prevent the development of cystoid macular edema. What will you give? Can you say ketorolac?
Ketorolac.
Very good. Indomethacin. 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 Very good. Then you can give topical steroids, periocular steroids, and systemic steroids for established cases. They are giving those. Okay, that's it, guys. You're done with pseudophakia case. So in ophthalmology history taking, now we completed which case? Pseudophakia. Guys, if you want, you can just look at our IOL videos, then cataract surgery complication video, cataract surgery complication video. You can see our after cataract video, and you can also see our IOL video, okay, to get more information if you want.